Hey, Ansel Lee here. Welcome to Common Grounds. I've got a really good friend with me today, and someone that I work with, greatly admire, David Martin. David is he's an ad and PR exec. He's had a great career, and it has a firm in Little Rock called Allegiance Consulting Group. And man, welcome to Common Grounds. Thanks for joining me here today,
Absolutely.
David. It means a lot to me for you to be here.
I appreciate being invited.
And hey, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what all you've done through the years?
Okay. Not sure that everyone's got time for that. But my background is in marketing research. Is how I began my career in the communications industry. And so in that field, we did public opinion research, political research, political campaigns. And I think that's where I first began to get that feel for crisis management. We didn't call it that back then.
Right.
But you were constantly dealing with, particularly with candidates, with something going wrong in a campaign that had to be responded to immediately. And then that grounding in public opinion research helped form a basis for understanding what moves public opinion. And so what are the things that happen that are bad that can move it, negatively? Or what are things that can happen to calm it down? What can happen to create a positive impression and goodwill towards whomever you're trying to work
Right.
with. And with political polling, we had that definitive, you were tracking it on a periodic basis, and of course there's always the day of reckoning, which is election day.
Right.
So you could tell what your results were of the things that you put into place, where in business it's not always so quickly evident, and so you just have to trust that what you're doing is the right thing. And so that grounding in public opinion research and political work really formed the basis of this career. And I've had the opportunity to work all over the world and to work on some incredible, on behalf of some incredible clients and challenging situations. And it's all the basics are really the same, no matter if it's a big, huge corporation or somebody in private practice. The basics are always the same.
Well, you shared with me that you really kind of cut your teeth in political research. And what was the name of the gentleman? Was he from Washita?
Right. Jim Rankino was a professor at Washita Baptist University that encouraged me to get into this field. And I really wasn't aware of it as a career option when I was in high school and graduating high school. But he was in the political science area of Washita Baptist University, and really had a huge influence on my life. He had a consulting practice and allowed me to begin working with him in that practice when I went to Washita, and then I continued doing that throughout the rest of my career.
Yeah, I just recall him being a big player, and actually they would go to him in the local media on his polling and whatnot. It was impressive. So yeah, I remember him, and then you went up to the U of A and did your graduate work, and you've worked with some impressive firms throughout the years. I know you've been at Cranford. You were at Cranford for a while.
I was. Yep.
Okay.
I was at Cranford for a number of years, and really, I ended up with a marketing research firm that had started out at Cranford Johnson. I ended up buying it from that company, and then the work that I did, had the opportunity to do a lot of work for Alltel in the very, very early stages of them making a decision about whether or not they would even get into the cellular business. They were still the traditional wireline business, and had the opportunity to do the feasibility study for them on whether or not they would get into cellular. And
I find that pretty incredible that Allied
it was Allied Telephone.
Allied Telephone, that you were part of that to figure out if they were going to get into the cellular business.
Now, obviously, it wasn't just my study, but
Sure.
but it did help form some of the decision making that took place, and helped us. We used it significantly in determining positioning for the product, pricing of the product, and really targeting the marketplace that would be ready for it as the phones first came out. So great success story there. And then over time, Alltel uses for so many different things. They ended up buying the company, worked with Alltel as the president of that subsidiary for a number of years, and then left and started my own firm.
Wow. Well, outstanding. Well, to be a part of that is really historic. I mean, finding those windows of opportunity to figure out if they're viable or not. Right. I mean, that's really kind of what you do,
right? It is.
And to go and do that kind of research, and to work with Allied Telephone to figure out if they're going to go in the cellular business, right, is pretty incredible. And but one of your passions, one of the things that you've seen throughout the years is the impact of reputation on the success, on anybody's success, right, and how you really need to formulate a plan and to be thinking ahead of things that are coming down the road.
Yeah, we've been in the situation where clients in really, really desperate circumstances would turn to us and ask for us to try to help them to overcome a challenge that they've been, encountered with, and it happened just like that. And whether it was a state agency,
right,
or a politician, or a business, or a physician, or just almost across the board, you can say this does happen to people, and it happens far more often than they would like to think, and it often happens because they didn't think ahead a little bit. They just didn't plan for it, and sometimes it's they've created the situation themselves,
right,
not intentionally, but
right,
they didn't think through their situation enough on the front end to realize, if I do this, this could happen. It was more about, well, if I do this, I'm going to advance my business or advance this career step or do this or do that. And in the age that we're living in, where information is so readily available and where you can find out almost anything about anybody instantaneously, and where there's virtually no filters on what other people can say about an individual, whether it's true or a half-truth or
right,
or not at all true, but it doesn't keep that from being said. And so if you're not prepared for it, if you haven't girded yourself against those kinds of possibilities, then you're at the whim of social media and the general media at large.
Yeah, and I think having not being proactive. If somebody comes out and posts something, or just say in social media,
right,
say, matter of fact, case in point, I've got a clinic where someone posted something about one of these, a doctor, and how negative it was, and it happened to be a nurse, from a, so she had some credibility, but it was slanderous, and so you cannot let that go. I mean, you have got to get on it and address it and deal with it. To think you can let it sit out there and not is a mistake, don't you think?
Well, I don't know about that particular situation,
yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that we work with, and we would help to assess it. So when we begin to work with a client, they typically begin with, okay, well, this is just what happened to us. And we say, well, wait, okay,
right,
back up, let's talk about this. And so we sign a non-disclosure agreement,
right,
confidentiality agreement. We often work with the client's attorney. This is in a crisis mode.
right,
But, and then, we never make a firm recommendation without the counsel of their attorney's blessing,
right,
because there's just too much at stake,
right.
And so we're not attorneys, and we have access to some. If the client doesn't, then obviously we can help them from that perspective. But we then go as aggressively as the circumstances would suggest to help address those issues. And sometimes you need to stay silent. Sometimes the best thing is to let it pass,
right,
because you're adding to it in that public environment. So the best thing may be to file a lawsuit. The best thing may be
right,
to just ignore it completely and go on and just step up your relationship with your existing clients, and make sure that they know that you are doing all you can for them.
Yeah, I've heard, actually, it was my mom who has this expression. She said, son, the more you stir crap, the more it smells. And so it's, I think that's very,
Right.
knowing, having the background to know what to do is key. And, and I think about that when it comes to, these data breaches
Right.
with either physicians, clinics, hospitals, surgery centers. These data breaches
Right.
are a concern of mine,
Right.
because you lose the trust of your patients.
Right.
You've lost. I mean, you could lose your business.
Right, right. And in the medical field, the data breaches associated with patient files is a violation of federal law. And there are certain reporting requirements that go along with that. And most physicians are well versed on that, or have an attorney that is well versed on it that can guide them through that process. But still, there are notification requirements and things of that nature that have to take place. And just handling those in the most positive way that you possibly can, to position it as we're taking care of our customers and to our clients. And we took all the steps that we could rationally be considered, that would be considered appropriate in a circumstance like this. And yet it happened. And we're sorry, but we're taking all reasonable steps to do what we can to protect it and to notify the authorities, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not trying to make the script right now, but I'm trying to say the intent is to deliver a very positive but aggressive message to your patient base about that, and let them know that you're going to continue to pursue it so that it doesn't happen again. We dealt with a company not too long ago that they were a data processing firm that did regulatory filings on behalf of their clients. That was their only business, was taking the client's information and filing it state by state by state by state, because there were different filing requirements state by state. And rather than the individual clients having to have a staff that could do all that, they would rely on this particular company to take their initial data and turn it into the individual state regulatory filings and then file them on appropriate. They, through an error, wasn't malicious, but just through an error, they lost all of their customer data. All was wiped in one mistake. And they showed up on our office door, at our office door. That happened over a weekend, and on Monday morning they were there first thing. And I think that particular situation is one that we're very, very proud of, because we help them, reach out to clients immediately, commitments to work with them to resolve the issue, put all kinds of resources on it, and in the process didn't lose a single client. And because they had previously had such a strong relationship with those clients, the clients gave them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
And were willing to work with them to restore those data files. And that's what did it. It wasn't anything we did specifically. It's just they had already built the foundation of a great relationship. And that's reputation management.
Right.
So that in that moment of crisis, they were able to move through it like that once they got over the shock of it, and we could help them get a plan together. And it didn't cost them very much to be, it did in resources to fix the problem, but not in outside fees to deal with it.
Right.
And so reputation management on the front end is what's so critical. And in healthcare, it just has to be a part. It ought to be the umbrella for your marketing and public relations program, and patient outreach, and all the other stuff that you want to put under that umbrella. Reputation management ought to guide the decisions that are made and how you interact with every stakeholder that you come in contact with.
I just had, I totally agree, and I just had really one of the world's largest software companies come to town a few weeks ago, and they showed us some incredible data or actually some analytics tools to where that you could actually, you know, see what all it's called social listening, if you will, you know, about and see what's all being said about you out there.
Right.
And it's incredible what you can get a hold of.
Right.
And I think most people don't know what's being said about them until it's too late.
Right.
And so I think that has to be a part of the plan as well, is, you know, utilizing technology to help you do that. And again, working with healthcare, working with clinics and hospitals, that I think they can easily put together a plan to help thwart that. And then I have another story about a friend who has got hit with ransomware. You know, that shut down their entire system. You know, and how do you communicate with your clients?
Right.
You know, and that they can get out an email.
Right.
You know, with 100 plus workstations in their organization. I just think I want healthcare to be aware of, you know, the potential threat, and that they need to be thinking ahead on this.
Oh, I agree. And again, it takes, you know, for a large organization, it takes a while to implement programs that would help safeguard it. But often they haven't. It's come up in a meeting and they said, yeah, we need to get on it, and they assign it to somebody, but they don't know. They really don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with it. And so, and then gaining the support of whoever's going to write the check to address something like that is often difficult if they don't come from a technical background in that particular situation, or a background that would make them realize the value of preparedness in those situations. It will take twice as long and cost at least twice as much to recover from a crisis if you don't have a reputation management plan in place on the front end. And if you do have a reputation plan in place on the front end, it'll more than pay for itself over time through the value of that intangible value of goodwill that is what is the most significant portion of most companies' balance sheet today. And it's continuing to grow in value and importance in valuing businesses for the long term.
You know, I as much as I worked with healthcare for these 30 plus years, is that it doesn't seem like they want to do anything until there's some pain, until something comes up.
Right.
Well, you know, in this case, when something comes up, you're in a hole.
Right.
It's almost too late.
Right.
You know, and then you have to play catch up.
Right.
Then you have to pay a bunch more to get out of this hole. And so being proactive. I guess that's what if they could have, what would be could you give them a first step?
Sure.
Yeah.
So also, again, if you think of it in terms of reputation management should be the umbrella of your marketing and public relations program. Well, you can pay for a reputation management plan through the dollars you're already spending in marketing and public relations, and it will make those programs so much more effective on the front end. There's enough waste in whatever is being done today in marketing and PR in virtually any organization to pay for the reputation management component and the work that will be done. And then you're still going to have to implement marketing programs, but with that philosophy in mind. So it's not as if it's a separate expense that has to be undertaken. And then you're in a crisis management mode. Healthcare, particularly, generally insurance will help cover the various forms of insurance that the hospitals or clinics or the institution or the individual physician, if they're involved, will help cover those costs. So it's really, cost shouldn't be the concern. There's ways to pay for it where it doesn't impact the bottom line.
Right.
But the first step is usually just sitting down and doing an assessment. Just figure out where you are. It's like anything else. It's like, where do we begin?
Right.
And then building a plan based on those vulnerabilities, and having just a very frank discussion about where they're vulnerable and what do we do about it. You know, healthcare in particular is an industry. All industries, I think, this is the first reaction, but healthcare particularly tends to want to contain it. If there's a problem,
Right.
if there's going to be something that's bad news, they don't want anybody to know because they intuitively know it's going to be bad for the reputation.
Right.
Right? So they just squeeze it down, and then what happens is it festers because it's not, something is going to happen because of that event, and whether it's you're going to end up getting a lawsuit, it'll become public, you'll end up crashing morale within the institution, which will impact hiring, your ability to hire the right kind of people,
Right.
your ability to get productivity to the levels it needs to be. It may impact patient care, which then begins to do other things. So just, address it. Doesn't necessarily mean by addressing it that it has to be public. It just means you got to get a plan. You got to get it, and it's not always just kick it to the attorney. It's get a plan in place and let's deal with this so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Listen, I can't thank you enough for coming here and getting to sit down and talk about this, something that's very important to healthcare and my clients and the folks I work with and the folks you work with.
Right.
And again, I just means a lot
Well,
that
thank
you
you.
would come here and share.
Thank you.
So again, hey guys, if you'd like to know more about reputation management and or get in touch with David, hey, message me here on LinkedIn and or Facebook, and I will connect you and or get you more information. Hey, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.